Yeah, and today we shall talk about design thinking. Valerie, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, everyone. Greetings from California, wherever you are. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. My name is Valeria Kanzuba. I am the program manager on the design transformation team at the Security Business Group. I'm the business designer. I have a lot of experience in like running, launching smaller businesses, and now working in a big corporation running developing, rolling out the design thinking program at Cisco. So nice to meet you all. Happy to talk about my passion on design
Yeah,
thinking.
yeah. What is the design thinking process and why it's so popular and effective?
Uh, so design thinking is the problem-solving methodology. It's a framework methodology, whichever way you can call it, that helps to solve problems more efficiently and effectively. It allows for great collaboration, cross-functional collaboration between teams, and it's user-centric approach, which is the most important part. And that's what makes it really popular and effective, because today, whatever we develop, whatever we create, whether it's a product for the market that we will sell as the company, and no matter big or small, or whether it's something that we just produce as the result of our everyday work, right? Like not necessarily even the product for the market, but putting together the presentation or setting up an event or rolling some policies across the companies or setting up some onboarding process, whatever is that, right? Like we produce something as the result of our work, and that always affects people, and that there always will be someone who will be interacting with whatever we're producing, who will be affected in certain way. So, and it's who is always a human being, it's a user. So design thinking puts the user in the center of the process, and with the design thinking methodology and approach, we first ask ourselves what the user needs are, and once we understand that, then we can build whatever we're building, whatever we're creating around those needs, so that once the product is ready, it's definitely something that the user wants and that the user needs and that he will consume afterwards. So that's that's why design thinking is super efficient and effective. On top that, it allows for, as I mentioned, for a lot of collaboration between the teams, which is absolutely necessary right now, because the problems we're all trying to solve in our life and businesses are very complex, and it's not something that can be solved just by one function or by one person. It's always a collaboration of different minds and different perspectives to make to figure out those complex problems and come up with really effective solutions.
And what is the difference between the solution-based and problem-based thinking, and how it's look like the relationship between the design thinking and UX design?
Okay, so let's break it down a little bit. UX design is about the outcome of designing. It's about the act and outcome of designing. It doesn't specify any specific process of how you want to approach creating that design, that outcome. While design thinking is the process, is the methodology that allows us to find those user needs and the problems, the right problems to solve. And it's super crucial because so UX designers use or might use the design thinking as one of the methodologies that they can apply in their work. And it's super crucial to understand, again, what is the right problem that we're trying to solve when we are designing whatever is that. And that's what you can do with the help of design thinking, finding the right problem to solve. Because, and that's where the difference between the problem, what was the way that you put it, a problem solving versus problem oriented versus solution oriented. So that's the difference between between those two is because you can create whichever solution, great solution you think about, but if it doesn't address the user need and if it doesn't solve for the user problem, then no one would want that solution. And that's what actually happens very naturally in our human brains, because we tend to think, oh, I know what the problem is and I know what the solution should be. We immediately come up with solutions, and we love doing that. When we see something is not working, we immediately want to jump in and say, oh, I want how to solve for that. Let me just get the budget, let me build it, let me roll it out. And we do that. But then once it's out, oh, no one is using the product or whatever that we would have created. And we ask ourselves why. Well, because that was only your perspective. You thought that that is the problem, and you thought that, oh, that's a great solution. But if you go and talk to your users first, that's cool, whatever you know, but it's only part of the whole space, and we call it problem space. But then if you will include other voices, if you will go and talk to the users, if you will include other functions that need to be part of that conversation, you will open up the whole universe of things that you didn't know about, like you didn't know about. So, and you have a totally different picture. So once you start understanding that, then you are able to figure out, okay, so then what is the right problem for the user to solve for? And then, okay, then we can think about the solution. So it just changes drastically the efficiency of the solution eventually that you build and roll out. So that's I would say the difference. And the empathy piece is like a huge one here, right? Because that's how you start understanding those needs, and that's what helps you to get into we call it like get into the user's shoes, understanding the user experience, what the user is going through right now, what are his actual problems, so that then you can solve for those problems and for those needs. So that's I would say the difference between the problem-oriented and solution-oriented approach.
How do design thinking, lean, and agile work together? What's going on in design thinking?
That's a great question that we very, very often hear, and they complement each other. They work perfectly well because, again, design thinking as the methodology aims at finding the right problem to solve. And once you've done that, then you can apply all the beauties of agile, lean, and everything to solve for that problem. So design thinking is the process that should happen upfront, understanding what are we solving for, who is our user, what are the needs, what are the problems that we will prioritize, and then apply the process and the techniques and the agile and lean. And like the real life, like if you look at the design thinking framework, which consists of multiple phases, and if you Google, you will find a few different ones. At Cisco, we adapted the design thinking framework to our specific business needs, and we talk about three main phases: discover, define, and explore. So if you look at the framework, initially it might look like a very linear process, while in real life it's very hard to apply because we often are already in the middle of the project, and the engineering team is already, for example, having some solution in place that they're trying to improve or do something with, like make it more efficient, or make sure that it addresses the right needs of the user. So if you think about the design thinking process as in terms of modes, that each of the phase is like a separate mode with a set of tools that you can pull out at any moment wherever you are in your agile process. You can pull out those tools from this toolbox and apply to help you in that particular moment with that particular part of the project to untangle whatever you have there. So again, like design thinking comes in as that toolbox that can help you wherever you are in your with your work. So yeah, that's like right hand and left hand, like they just work together.
Yeah. What do you think about what is the big problem in design thinking during the pandemic and what's going on with remote work?
um
Yeah, it's I
well,
know it's really complicated right
I
now.
well, first of all, I would probably say that our whole life is the wicked problem right now. Okay, like the wicked question. It's like wherever you look
Yeah.
at right now, the whole thing is so wicked. So
Yeah.
um and the problem is there is no one size fits all answer, right?
Yeah.
um
Right.
and I would say that, like, if I would identify one specific one that I'm personally very passionate about right now, and it applies no matter its work or its personal life, is it's about creating connections in the world where we're so disconnected, and like in the environment that makes us so disconnected from each other on the human level, right? Like, yes, we have technology that things at least helps us to see each other somehow, talk to each other, collaborate. That's all great.
Yeah, but
But
it's digitally. Yeah, it's
exactly,
digitally.
I'm talking about that human aspect, right? So how do we get connected in the environment where we're so disconnected on that personal level? That's probably the one um, that is interesting to solve.
Mhm.
Again,
Yeah.
no answer that will fit everything and will solve for everything, but I'm trying at work, like we're trying right now all the different possible ways that we can come up with to create those connections between people. And it's interesting because technology does help in that. And as an example, since we all have to do our work remotely and we all have to join our meetings through the screen and the camera, and each of us are in our own environments. So now with that, we see much more about people because they're joining from their native environments where they live, not the artificial environment of the office, right, or of some co-working space. You can connect with people at a different level now and get to know them much differently than you would do it before, right? Because you see what they have in their background, how their room looks like, whatever is that, messy or not, doesn't matter. You have kids popping up, you have cats jumping on the laptop, so all the jazz, right? And it's great. It really, like, we noticed that at Cisco that it really helped us to get to know our team members totally differently than how it was before, and know
Mhm.
really interesting cool stuff about each other. One of the things that we love to do, and I love to do with my teams, is asking to, like, show us one object, that like one special object that you have on the table, special for you. And it's so interesting to see what people have on their tables and hear the
Wow.
story about those objects, right? Because then they start opening up as the human. And objects can be absolutely different. Like sometimes it's something unique, and sometimes it's as simple as a set of different pens. And you hear about the person. Oh, like, I actually have all these different writing tools on my desk because depending on my mood or depending on the type of the task I'm doing, I would prefer a certain writing tool. And apparently you start to learn that that person enjoys going to the online stores and buying those different tools. And it's just great to get to know these small personal things about people, and that's what helps to create that human connection when you actually start to know a person.
Yeah.
not from just perspective, oh, okay, this is my team member, we have these professional tasks, goals set that we need to accomplish, but getting to know each other just as human beings. So but then it's a big issue, like a big question, which is again a wicked one for me, is um, how do you make how do you create the environment for people to open up, right, and to actually share something. So and this example with sharing about the object on your table is a great one, because it allows people to talk about something that is really close to them, but it's not too personal still. So um, yeah, this is an interesting one for me for sure.
Yeah, and it's look like it troubles the share economy, actually. Yeah, maybe they're looking for new business models for the digital space too. Okay, and what do you think? How they can use design thinking for the like to respond to this crisis? What is the best lessons from the pandemic or like your previous life? Maybe you
Uh,
give some advices.
yes, so I think empathy as is needed as never before. And I think that's something that we all learn, not only appreciation for sure for things that we took for granted very often and didn't pay attention, and we were just
Mhm.
enjoying what we have. I think for a lot of people right now, it has been like a huge lesson to recognize things that we enjoyed before and now we cannot have them and we really want them. How much benefit and how much value those things would bring into our life. But definitely a lot about empathy. And I just published an article on Medium where I'm sharing my previous experience of immigration, how we moved to the United States 6.5 years ago, and how actually the principle of empathy, building that empathy, experimentation, and iteration helped us to go through. I don't want to call that a crisis. It's not a crisis, but it's a drastic change from one world into another world where all your points of reference are irrelevant anymore. And you have to figure out how things work in a totally new world. And that's what we're trying to do right now with this pandemic. We need to figure out other new ways of working, collaborating, living, doing things that we were able to do before. And we cannot do them in a similar way now. So definitely building empathy with each other, building empathy with people you know and you don't know. That's probably as important as building empathy with people you know, because everyone goes through so many experiences, good and bad, right now, and we see how much we depend on each other. So understanding other people's perspectives, other people's experiences, other people's feelings relating to that. And it's not about agreeing with those or not agreeing, but knowing about them, at least being aware, trying to understand, and understand why the person reacts or behaves in a certain way. Again, you may disagree with that, but at least you know, so that then you can also adjust how you do things, how you solve problems, how you communicate with those people. Um, then the experimentation, which is another design thinking principle, which absolutely beautifully applies in life, is putting out, trying things out, actually, right? Like doing something quick and small that can help you test whatever that you want to do, right? Not thinking big upfront, not trying to build big solutions or make big changes, make big decisions, but figuring out, okay, how can you quickly test whatever is that you want to do and see how that works. how that works for you, how that works for your users, how that works for your stakeholders, again, whether it's personal life, professional life, whatever is that. And learning from those experiences, like really, really quickly. And learning is not about confirming that you're right, but actually really being open-minded and ready to learn that, oh, something is not the way you want it to be, or the thing works not the way you'd like it to work, or your user is not reacting to your solution in a way you would want them, right? And understanding what drives that reaction, what are the behaviors that sit behind that reaction, so that you can adjust and you can make the solution so that it fits for the user needs again. And so from there comes the iteration, right? So learn as quickly as possible and learn what's wrong, what doesn't work, and then iterate to make it better. But again, for that, you have to have a very open mind and be ready for that. And it's not always easy. It's not always we're ready to do that. Not always we're open to do that, because we as humans naturally think. So we get connected, first of all, to our thoughts and ideas and perspectives. And we want to think that this is the only and right way to do or think something. So getting into that empathetic and open mindset of learning might not be like really easy sometimes, but that's something that definitely the way out for all of us. Like, we need to reconsider so many things and to become so much more aware of others around us, so that together we can build a better future in whichever area moving forward. So
Yeah,
empathy, experimentation,
empathy.
and iteration, for sure. Three things that in small things, like taking small steps with these principles. I think that's what we can do. That's what feasible, and that's what will help us.
Mm-hmm. And next question, how can design thinking help reboot our personal life, or maybe professional, maybe should be advice for the startups, and something new about create like our new normal life that benefit everyone, something sustainable maybe. What do you think?
So I probably, like, this question also relates to my previous
Yeah, yeah,
explanation,
yeah.
right? Because these principles, and that's the beauty of design thinking and the beauty of these principles and mindsets, that you can apply them everywhere, no matter big or small problem, no matter it's professional or personal. You can always find opportunities for building empathy. You can always find opportunities to run experiments with whatever big or small thing you want to do, you try to build. And you can always keep learning and keep that open mindset of a learner, to iterate and make things better. So, and from my personal experience, again, relating back to my article, as much as I'm thinking about all the different situations that we had to go through in our lives, and I had to go through, that's definitely a sustainable way of moving forward, especially in unknown environment, right? Where you have so much ambiguity, you don't know what's going to happen next. You cannot build plans for like long period of times. But if you do small steps right here, right now, wherever you are, whether it's a new startup, whether it's your personal family life or anything. I'm trying to figure out the schooling for my kids right now, right? So it's the same thing we do every day. We're like, okay, how did it go today? What worked? What didn't work? Okay, this didn't work. Okay, what can we do a little bit differently tomorrow with this one small thing and let's try if that works differently tomorrow. Let's see. Okay, tomorrow comes. Okay, how did it work today? Well, this was better. Okay, but that was still not as good. Okay, what else can we do? How else can we iterate and change? What have we learned from this experience today that can help us iterate tomorrow? So that's definitely the way to go, I think.
And it's really interesting. What is the next in design thinking? What is the future of work? What do you think? Maybe it should be like a positive pivot, maybe something new for the better normal, or maybe healthy businesses. What do you think? What is
Um,
the future of design thinking 2.0?
I
Yeah, after the pandemic.
well, design thinking will not go away. That's for sure. There is it proved to be a very simple but very very efficient approach to working through ambiguity, right, and to working through really complex problems. Because the thing that happens when we face big challenges, complex challenges, is that we often freeze facing those, right? We don't know what to do. We don't know how to approach that huge thing, from which side. How do I solve for that? I have no clue. So design thinking tools are the tools that help you to break down that complexity into smaller pieces and understand all that problem space very um, in a very detailed manner, so that then once you start understanding that, you can prioritize and you can figure out where do you want to focus your resources. So I only see like more and more application of design thinking for sure moving forward. And it's been a like a big um like it's been a lot of the different companies that setting up the programs, design thinking programs, investing into developing design thinking programs, small companies, big corporations, design thinkers as the profession starts being on the market, and the roles like design thinkers as the role um, establishes itself in the companies. So um, I mean I don't. It's been it's been around for a few decades already, and it would only be more and more applicable as the world, with all the globalization happening, as we need to work together more than ever, as we need diversity of thoughts and perspectives more than ever in solving the problems. Because again, like, we need to cover such a vast range of population as we're solving for problems, whichever, especially if we're talking about big global problems like in education and travel and like really big problems. So um, the diversity is like a huge part of that, and design thinking is definitely the tool and the framework that brings that diversity together, and it allows people to be heard. It allows people to have their voice in the conversation, and it allows people to hear others, right? So and that's what creates that collaboration environment um, with design thinking.
Let's talk about insights uh, for this year and beyond 15 years. Where do you see the tech industry going in the next maybe 2, 3 years plus 15? What do you think?
Oh God. um, well, tech industries. I mean, it's very broad, right?
Like education, maybe mobility, robotics, VR and AR, of course, cybersecurity, and a lot of great things in green energy. Yeah.
uh, definitely a huge transition to the cloud,
Mm-hmm.
probably pretty much like all the areas, right? Transitioning to the cloud, creating the much more flexible environment within a lot of these areas that you've mentioned. If
Mm-hmm.
we look at the education, creating the opportunities for people in all the different parts of the world to have access to the education, reducing the cost of that education, definitely creating opportunities for minorities to have access to good education. Um, I would dream that no matter where you are and what is your financial status, that any child has access to education. So because the more people are educated, the more interesting and diverse world we can have eventually. So
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a true believer that every person is has such a huge potential, and if that potential is put into the right environment, it would flourish. Um, any child has like huge potential. Just let them develop. Give them tools. Give them space to do that. And I really hope that our education system would develop towards more of that flexibility in how they teach kids, what kids can do, giving them more chances to come up with their own way of educating themselves with the help of adults or technology, rather than us imposing certain systems and saying, okay, like that's how you have to do it, right? Because it's painful to see kids at school when they're bored, because that's supposed to be interesting. That's a new knowledge that should be exciting. But you often see like their bored eyes and they're like, oh, that's a boring math. That's a like whatever. I don't know what's going on in that class. And especially now as they're all at home and they don't see their peers, and that was like a big part of the schooling experience. They just see the screen. They're like, oh, they're bored. So um, I would love to see more flexibility for kids and opportunities to step out, to step away from um, the system that has very strict boundaries, and give them more flexibility and allowing more creativity, and allowing for them to choose their way of educating and of learning. I would That's probably the better way to say. Um, so yeah, that's
Yeah. Yes,
education
education
for.
is really important. It's great opportunity for the social impact too. And what do you think if you talk about post-pandemic era? What is your further thinking strategy
So can you elaborate a little bit, like strategy for what?
for the business and for the personal life, and how we can use digital design thinking and digital?
Um,
What is the strategy after the pandemic in big picture?
you know what, I probably it's hard to think right now in terms of after the pandemic, because I think it's more about the transition, right?
Hmm.
Like we've been in a certain world, we're now in that transition point to just some different world. I don't think like, and maybe we need to clarify, if we talk about after pandemic, Are we thinking that things will be back to how they were? I hope no.
Yeah.
We do
Mm-hmm.
want a lot of things to come back, like personal interaction for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I really hope that we take the learnings that we have right now, and we take the opportunity of us being in these constraints we are in right now to allow for creativity, because we need to figure out in this moment, being in these constraints, oh, how do we do this or that? And it allows for
Exactly.
really unusual and creative solutions to come up, so that then we can take them moving forward. I really hope that we will not be thinking about the after pandemic as something that, okay, like let's wait until certain moment when things just come back to how they were. I really want to think that this is our opportunity to transition, and it's hard. It's hard, um, at all the levels: personal, professional, businesses, families. But we really need to take this chance and make things better for the future. I don't want to think that, okay, that was pre-pandemic, now this is pandemic, and then after pandemic we'll just come back. So definitely, allowing for more creativity, to make things better. That's 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 something that I would expect to happen. And that better can be different, right, in different areas for different people. It would be different for some people. It's about improving their just how they eat and what they eat, right? Because
Yes.
now
Exactly.
not always you can go and buy food, like in the fast food chains. So okay, maybe you need to think about, and okay, people started cooking more in their houses, and I hope that's a good healthy habit that will stay with them post pandemic, right? They won't come back to their old habits. um, so taking all these good things, that these good chances that we have right now, and transforming those into something better, I hope that will continue on and on. And that we now all have a great example of how we can actually do that, right? Because we were so comfortable in our lives, doing our own things, yes, creating something, like solving for some problems. But right now it's like a snowball of complex questions and problems that we have, that everyone has to participate and everyone can play a part. There are so many opportunities for people who normally would not have those opportunities to solve for big or small, within your small world or in your bigger world. Let's take those opportunities. Let's yeah, let's just
Yeah.
do that.
And last question. Actually, it should be advice for the entrepreneurs and for the investors how to keep team mindset in this situation, the remote work. What is your advice? How we can survive, and yeah, how we can use design thinking for this?
As simple as that, empathy. It all comes to empathy. Empathy gives so many. It's the answer to so many questions. Human connection, which will come from this empathy, right? Because and I think it's now it gets even harder because we have been in this situation for such a long time right now, that we get used to, okay, that's how it is, right? And we forget about all the hard parts that are happening in people's lives as they need to work through the situation, working and having their kids at home and homeschooling and taking care of family and everything. So uh, I really hope that any leader of whatever business or family, or it's a startup, or investors working with multiple startups, we're all leaders in our roles. So really think about people first. Really think about how your people are doing, at the personal human level, ask them those questions. We have a really great habit that we developed at Cisco now, is starting all the meetings with not simply how are you doing, but actually having like small conversations, sharing with each other about some personal stuff, how your day went yesterday, or okay, tell me how was your morning, right? So really creating space for people to first connect at the human level, to look into each other's eyes, to see each other's faces, because also often people don't want to go on camera. So we encourage everyone, hey, like, we don't care what's happening in your background, wherever you are, just your face and your smile and your eyes is what is important. And that's the basics, I think, in whatever you do, right? Because everything is about human beings in this life. So making those connections, making sure that you connect with people on this personal level. If you build that connection, then the rest will work out. If you don't build that connection, then whatever you do, things will get screwed up eventually. Um, so reaching out to your people, talking to them, making sure that you're checking on them and they check on each other, developing that culture of human connection within teams, big or small. That's that's really important nowadays. And I mean, it's been important always. Just often before we didn't pay that much attention as often as needed. But we really developed this habit right now, and I hope we continue to develop that, and it will stay with us, and we'll just only get better.
Yeah. Thank you for your good advice, and thank you for your time, Valeria. Yeah. I think it was really great conversation.
Thank you, Manana, so much for inviting me, and thank you for having this conversation. It's great.
Yeah, let's do
Happy
it
to
something
connect.
together next
Yeah, I
time.
know. Yeah,
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 this was amazing. Thank you so much. Bye
yeah.
bye.
You're welcome. Bye bye. Have a good day.